James, good morning.
Good morning. Pleasure to be with you.
So the question is not if, but when Israel-US relations will reset. I mean, the writing is already on the wall as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu prepares for an end-of-the-year visit to Washington, his fifth since President Donald Trump returned to the Oval Office in January.
Indeed, the reset is unlikely to be sudden or in one big bang. Instead, it will probably be gradual, but consequential. Already, Trump has made clear that his forthcoming talks with Netanyahu will focus on curbing Israeli military operations in Syria, achieving agreement on security agreements that will include an Israeli withdrawal from Syrian territory occupied by Israel since last year's toppling of President Bashar al-Assad, and constructive Israeli engagement in the implementation of the president's Gaza ceasefire plan, including the creation of an international stabilization force. Most potential Arab and Muslim contributors to the force insist that they must be invited by the West Bank-based internationally recognized Palestine Authority, and that Israel fully withdraw from Gaza. Netanyahu has ruled out a role for the authority because it would put Palestinian national aspirations at the core of post-war Gaza arrangements. The reset would involve the Trump administration drawing sharper dividing lines between perceived U.S. and Israeli interests, increased congressional scrutiny of Israel, a repositioning of Israel's status as first among equals in U.S. policy, and a phased restructuring of the U.S. military relationship.
Now, Hamas says it's willing to give up its arms, but not drop the principle of armed struggle as part of the implementation of the second stage of Trump's Gaza proposal.
Disarmament of Hamas is another bottleneck for the creation of the International Stabilization Force. Israel insists that the force should be charged with disarming Hamas. Most potential Arab and Muslim contributors see the force's task as monitoring ceasefire lines between Palestinians and Israelis and supporting a Palestinian police force. Israel wants the force to disarm Hamas by hook or by crook. Hamas said it is willing to give up its heavy arms, but not drop the principle of armed struggle as part of the implementation of the second stage of Trump's proposal. It's likely that Hamas does not have a lot of heavy arms left after more than 2 years of war. Moreover, Hamas links disarmament to a credible process that would lead to the creation of an independent Palestinian state. One reason why Israel rejects possible Turkish participation in the stabilization force.
Now, rather than putting the horse in front of the cart, James, right, Netanyahu, backed by pro-Israel administration officials, has so far opted for a rearguard battle to counter slippage in support for Israel among the evangelicals by pouring tens of millions of dollars into public relation campaigns.
This week, Israel invited the first tranche of 1,000 pro-Israel American pastors for a training in propagating the Israeli narrative and combating anti-Semitism. Mike Huckabee, the Trump administration's Christian Zionist ambassador to the Jewish majority state, joined Israeli officials in encouraging the pastors to counter growing anti-Israel sentiment in the president's support base. The problem is that the train has likely left the station, particularly among the American firsters in the Trump administration and evangelical youth. Israel and people like Huckabee are looking backwards. In other words, they want to return to support for Israel based on a specific interpretation of Scripture. What is needed is a new narrative that addresses the concerns of American firsters and evangelicals. That, however, would have to involve policy changes, which are nowhere on the horizon.
And these days, it's rare, James, for a major Israeli organization to take a stand against racism. Yet, that is what the Israeli Football Association, the IFA, did this week when it approved stricter penalties for racist offenses committed by individual fans, crowds, or teams.
Indeed, the association had little choice. 18 months after the World Soccer body FIFA issued a directive obligating national associations to implement specific rules, sanctions, and procedures to combat racism. The association waited until almost the last minute to align its codes with FIFA's anti-racism standards, and to do so by the December 31 deadline for all FIFA members. With a history of slapping clubs and fans on the wrist for expressions of racism, the Israeli Association adopted its stricter measures in an environment in which anti-Palestinian and anti-Muslim racist and genocidal expressions by government officials, prominent media figures, and soccer fans have become accepted public discourse in Israel in the wake of Hamas's October 7 attack. The measures are likely to reinforce FIFA's sidelining of calls by several national football associations, including the Palestinian Football Federation, high-profile footballers and athletes, activists, and United Nations appointed experts to suspend the Israeli Association's membership because it allows teams from illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank to compete in Israeli leagues in violation of international law.
All right, James, as always, thank you so much for your time, and have a great week.
Thank you. I wish you a great weekend.
Well, listeners can look out on Substack for James M. Dorsey and read the latest articles there. We're coming up to 6 minutes